Hey cats, EDDBUD here. Zoom ice lollies were always my favourite when I was a young man. Today I've got an initial review for you of a highly anticipated shoe. One that seems to be extremely popular amongst the viewers. It is the Nike Zoom Fly 4. My word, it's bright, isn't it? The question that's on everybody's lips is it better than the last one? Let's find out. This shoe's released with almost no fanfare over here in the UK. The Zoom Fly series does seem to have got a strong following over in the British Isles. Many enjoy its durable yet propulsive qualities. This is a shoe that I've bought with my own cash, no freebies here. As such, you get my honest views as always. Also worth noting is I buy the shoes and I tend to hang on to them. I don't just send them back after a run. I think that's a bit of a pointless practice. Doesn't really give you a longer term view and help you make a buying decision. First, some stats for you. So in my UK size 11, US size 12, this one comes in at a hefty 329 grams. That's around about 11.6 ounces. That makes it about 14 grams heavier than its predecessor, the Zoom Fly 3. So it's pretty much following the trend really, guys. This series just gets heavier and heavier. Looking back at the Zoom Fly, so that was about 289 grams, 10.2 ounces. The Zoom Fly Flyknit, which was a particular favourite of mine, that was 299 grams and 10.5 ounces. And the Zoom Fly 3, 315 grams, 11.1 ounces. So you see which way it's going. So between the Zoom Fly 4 and the original version, there's about 40 grams difference. It's about 1.4 ounces. By no means is this like a lightweight race option anymore. Certainly not for me. Another thing to note is the series has got progressively narrower in the heel, and they seem to be continuing to expand out that midfoot section here. The widest point is now quite a bit wider, in fact, than the original Zoom Fly. It's just a bit puzzling, to be honest, why they're making it heavier and heavier. Although I do have a theory. I'll get to that later on. Price was 145 Earth credits here in the UK, though I used a promo code and picked them up for about 130. It's a little bit easier to swallow. So a reasonable initial run of 9 miles today, 14.5 kilometers. Dry conditions throughout, but it was nice and chilly early doors. So a mile warm up there with 2 sets of 2 miles at half marathon target pace and a mile recovery in between. I did start a third rep of those 2 mile bursts, but after the first mile of those I felt a bit of pain, a little bit of tightness I suppose, in my hamstring on the right side, so decided to call it a day. Sunday. Not taking any chances, race coming up soon, so I don't want any injuries. Too much paperwork. So pace ranges between about 8 minutes 15 per mile and about 6:50 per mile. We'll start with the upper first. So we have got a little bit of Flyknit here. I mean, it does proudly say Flyknit, but there's not a lot of it. Most of it's concentrated in what would be the tongue, I suppose, and parts of the rear section here around the heel. It's kind of more reminiscent really of the Infinity Run Flyknit, perhaps the top section of the Alpha Fly as well, but I'd say putting Flyknit on there really isn't representative of what the shoe's all about. You've got this 2-layer type situation going on, very similar to the Zoom Fly 3. The internal layer's quite hugging around the foot, and then you've got this cavernous layer on top of that, which is huge. Parachute type stuff here, guys. There's so much material they could have removed. As you can see from the images, I had to cinch the laces together a huge amount, and that was using an even thicker Adidas sock as well than I would normally use. The Flyknit section here is quite stretchy, but it just kind of grips around your foot. It's the outer layer that's the problem here. I'm just really perplexed by it. I've got a normal width foot as well, so if you've got a narrow foot, it's going to be even worse. As I say, that tongue there is quite stretchy, very similar to the thing that's featured on the Infinity Run Flyknit or Flyknit 2, and it does give you a little hint of that cult classic Zoom Fly Flyknit. Oh, what a shoe that was. So if looks and how a shoe envelops your foot is really important, then avoid this one. I mean, you've got massive pull tabs here, just aren't really needed. Doesn't really affect the lockdown or performance of the shoe at all. Once you do get the shoe dialed in though, it does lock around the foot superbly well. It uses these midfoot bands, very similar to what you find on the Pegasus 38, or the Streak 7 in fact. Although the real improvement here is the adding of this extra padding around the ankle. It's closer to what you find on the Vaporfly Next Percent or the Alphafly Next Percent. Much more considerable now It kind of juts out quite a bit, but it really does lock the heel into place. As I say, the upper looked a bit strange once I actually laced the shoe up, but there was zero heel slip whatsoever. From a functionality perspective, it works a treat. It's such a shame though that there's loads of excess material here in the upper. They could have got rid of that and shaved off a bit of weight. As such, it's just getting heavier and heavier every year. I wonder what the Zoomfly 5 will be like. I mean, it's not far off the Pegasus 38 and the Vomero 16 now for weight. In fact, the original Infinity Run Flynet is actually lighter than this in my size. That's crazy. The Glide Ride 2 from Asics is only 7 grams heavier. What's that all about? I'm not sure where Nike are going with all these strange upper choices on recent shoes. They're getting heavier and heavier, just dropping the ball every time. Is it deliberate to try and create more difference between their training shoes and the race shoes so that they can warrant having the race shoes being so much more expensive? Maybe. A very baggy upper here, which is actually quite warm on foot. Wasn't made any better by those thicker socks. Those huge pointless pull tabs, I suggest you could cut those off. But a much improved lockdown from the Zoomfly 3. As such, I think it's actually the best bit of the shoe. And I thought it was going to be the worst. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 3 for upper after my initial runs. Midsole now. Some people mention that React needs time to break in. I try a lot of shoes out, guys, and there aren't very many these days that need an awful lot of time to break in and start to feel good. How long do you need to break a shoe in? 10 miles? 50 miles? 200 miles? There's a big slab of React here, and it's not the sort of React that we found in the Infinity Run Flynet or in the Zoomfly Flynet. This stuff's really, really dense. If you didn't like the Zoomfly 3, this shoe isn't going to win you over. It's tough. In fact, it's tried to start a fight with me twice since I took it out of the box. There's not an awful lot of compression here, no crazy squash like you get in a fuel cell shoe. Yes, there's a carbon plate in there to stabilise things, but I think the React probably does quite a good job of that all on its own. I think if you're buying this shoe for the fact it's got a carbon plate in, then there's probably other shoes you can look at that are cheaper. I'd go elsewhere. I think the React just dulls the ride that you get from that carbon plate. I mean, it's no comparison if I was to pit this up against the Tempo Next Percent. None whatsoever. That shoe just smokes this one at higher race paces. I had to crank the effort meter right up to get to my half marathon goal pace today. It's nothing to do with my legs at all. My legs were feeling great this morning. It's just a very dictative shoe that wants you to run in a certain way, and that's it. There's certain paces I ran at today where it just felt jarring and quite uncomfortable. It's an uncompromising shoe. After a warm-up mile, I got used to the shoe somewhat and got up to a half marathon target pace there, though not sure that this is a shoe that I'd really want to race in. Can't really see anybody wanting to race in this shoe. Yes, it's stable, it's very solid underfoot, and I would suggest that the midsole does benefit a little bit from that improved upper. I mean, it's the same one that was on the Zoomfly 3, but it feels better here. React and that rigid plate just seems total overkill to me. I mean, this configuration felt quite tough in 2019. It feels even tougher in 2021. Just no different here at all. A training shoe for higher paced workouts here. I mean, it's going to be really durable if that's one of the chief things that you look for in a higher tempo shoe, but it's just not really that enjoyable to run in. Just outdated and superseded by loads of other shoes from loads of other manufacturers. Nike, raise your daily trainer game. Seriously. I'd rather run in the heavier Pegasus 38. Felt more enjoyable, more exciting, and this thing makes the invincible run seem like 1,000 pillows. I give it a 1.5 out of 3 for the midsole after my initial runs. Outsole now. So it's the same as the previous version. If that worked for you, then this will too. Seemed okay today, pretty serviceable on most surfaces, though the firmer rubber found here isn't anywhere near as malleable as the stuff that you'll find on the Next Percent. I think that creates some of the very firm feel that you get from the Zoomfly 4. The lug depth is pretty reasonable, though in the heel here it really does suck up lots of debris. One run and it started to become very clogged up. Certainly the sections between the rubber and the foam, they're full of bits of twig and all sorts of stuff in there. Insects. acorn shells and all sorts of bits I've had to pull out of there already. Works really well on road and pavement. I think that's its forte. I'd avoid gravel though, it certainly didn't work out too well for me. This stuff's so tough that when you meet a piece of gravel there, you kind of bounce off of it rather than it sticking into the foam. I mean, that's great from a durability perspective, but not from a staying on your feet and not falling flat on your face perspective. Just bounces off any stone or rocks. It's a balance, isn't it? Durability. You want things to be soft, but you also want things to be durable enough that they don't get destroyed within a run. So I'd say a really stable ride on smooth surfaces. Avoid anything with debris. It's dry as a bone out there, so I can't really comment on wet traction. I'm sure in the next few days though that will change. So reasonable account of itself today. I'm going to give it a 2.4 out of 3 after my initial runs for Outsole. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to talk value. At 145 Earth credits UK, I can't recommend that anyone should pick up this shoe. It's absolutely worth the extra spend to get the tempo next percent if you ask me. A true high-paced tempo shoe with a reasonable weight. This thing's just too heavy now, too heavy. I felt the tempo next percent's just more propulsive. It's a more engaging, exciting ride. The Speed 2, for example, just more versatile. You could put that on and run some easy miles, some fast miles. You could race in the Speed 2 if you wanted to. No one's going to race in this. It's like £10 extra. It's a no-brainer. The similarly priced Rocket X from Hoka. Way better shoe than this. That is how to deliver a carbon plate shoe on a budget. It's like a reasonable price and just super light. It's like a feather compared to the Zoomfly 4. To think a few days ago you could pick up the Gakuso Next Percent for like £121. Makes this look ridiculous, doesn't it? Yes, the Zoomfly 4 is an improvement on the Zoomfly 3, but I feel there's better ways to spend your 145 hard-earned Earth credits. Just more versatile options out there that don't need break-in time. I think you'll get more enjoyment out of them over a shorter timescale. Yes, it might be durable, it might last you hundreds and hundreds of miles, but are you going to enjoy running those miles? Unless the midsole and plate setup in the Zoomfly 3 worked for you, I can't really recommend it. Just doesn't have that same versatile use case. Shoes like the Rebel 2, Liberate Nitro, RC Elite, Tempo Next Percent, Rocket X, or the Deviate Nitro Elite, they all offer a more versatile option than this. And almost all of those shoes I've just listed are cheaper, aside from the Puma Racer obviously. But that's easily worth the extra Earth credits on top of this one. I think it's going to last an incredibly long time, this shoe, if it works for you. But it's the type of shoe that you've enjoyed in the past. I say go for it. I don't see the outsole wearing out anytime soon, and React is as hard as nails. As such, I'm going to give it a 1.8 out of 3 for value. I think I'm being quite generous there. It's good for one or two things, but nothing else. Just more versatile options out there right now. So overall, that gives us an 8.2 out of 12 for the Nike Zoomfly 4 after my initial runs. Just a bit of a tired sequel, I think. I mean, why continue with this line when you could have carried on the Pegasus Turbo, right? A musical interlude for you. I couldn't resist this one today, guys. One of my favourite tracks is Fat Larry's band's Zoom. Wonderful vocal performance on this one. I really love the production as well. It's this magical, open sort of 70s type production. There's an absolutely fantastic version of this track by McAlmont and Butler, if you can find that one. In the chorus, it just goes through the roof. I mean, McAlmont's got such a wonderful vocal range. There's some great guitar parts on there from BB as well. It's one of those kind of classic tunes. It comes on and you're just like, yeah, it always makes you smile. You can't help but smile. Do check it out if you've never heard it before. Fat Larry's band's Zoom. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the review. I will be hanging on to the Zoomfly 4 and seeing if I can get some enjoyment out of it for my Earth credits. You never know. I could change my opinion on that over time. It has happened before. If you haven't done so already, guys, please help the channel out by clicking that subscribe button and also clicking the bell below for notifications when we launch those new videos for you. And it helps us out too by giving this video a thumbs up like, but also sharing it with your running buddies. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you